Welcome to Three Questions to Better Business. It's been a little while, but I decided a while back I'm not going to schedule one every Friday just to do it at the same time. When I meet interesting people, that's when I want to schedule an interview. And today's guest has been very patient with me. Between health issues and technology, I've kept having to postpone him. But Andy, you're a true gentleman. You didn't complain at all to me. Maybe you did behind my back. That's okay if you did.
I'm
But
looking
no,
forward to this, Michael. It's good to be here.
so glad to have you with us, Andy Weinig, the elevator pitch coach. Andy and I met through a networking group that we're part of, coincidentally, which is where you hear a lot of elevator pitches. Because of my background in presentation skills and storytelling, I'm often asked about elevator pitches. But I wanted to bring on someone who does this all the time, and he's really good. So, Andy, real quick, just a quick introduction. Tell us about where you are, and I'll get into some questions about your background, but just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, so I'm an elevator pitch coach. My training's as a computer scientist, of course. Isn't that how most people get to marketing?
Yes.
And over the past 15 years or so, I've been helping people with the elevator pitch, with business networking. And, I teach it because I had to learn it. I started a business and got into the Chamber of Commerce, and none of it made sense to me. It took me a while to figure it out. And I'm an engineer by training, so I kind of got pieces that worked and put it all together, and I wrote a book. And so now this is what I teach. And I do teach people how to start conversations, how to keep conversations going, and how to turn those into kind of stronger relationships.
Excellent. Now, as a storytelling coach, I pride myself on digging. Now, what was it specifically? We're going to jump right into the first question.
Yeah, please do.
What is it specifically that attracted you to doing this and deciding to do it full time?
Well, let's see. So even as a computer scientist, even as a computer programmer, I was always interested in trade shows. I've been doing theater since I was in high school and just loved being on stage and being in front of people. And so even when I was managing computer teams, they would send me to trade shows. And I was always interested because, at a trade show, you have talking points, things you have to say about the product. And when you get back to the engineering floor, I would say those things, and all the engineers would look at me like, Andy, that's not true. And of course, it's not true at the bit level. Like, it wasn't true from their engineering point of view, but from the customer's point of view, it was absolutely true. So I've always been really interested in, I tell people, marketing, this is marketing. It's not true confessions, right? I mean, you're telling a story that help connect people to you and connect people to what you're offering. And so I've always been fascinated by that. I've always been fascinated by the ability to present things. And when I got laid off 2 recessions ago, I had the opportunity to start a couple of businesses. And when you start a business, you need to promote yourself. And I just ended up in all these worlds where I had to use the skills I didn't have yet of introducing myself and being clear and concise and all that. And so I just started working on that. But that's, I believe you teach what you need to learn. And I definitely needed to learn this. And I say it took me 8 years to figure out how networking works, but it's really a 3 to 6 month coaching process. It shouldn't take you 8 years to figure out how to get results out of business networking.
Well, I had the same story when it comes to storytelling. It took me 14 years to figure out storytelling in a process I can now teach you in 6 to 8 weeks.
Nice.
Now, there's repetition involved, but you've seen every kind of bad elevator pitch and every good one. We're in the group we're in, age 7. I'm starting to see some people giving some really good elevator pitches.
Yes.
I know you've worked with some folks. I've had some videos that people have looked at. So, Andy, we're starting to make a difference.
We are. It's good.
Now, what is the most common type? I know the phrase, I think it gets thrown around so much that it's kind of like the word business coach. What are the different types that you see, and what's the most common type?
Well, so the one people know about is the 30-second elevator pitch, right? People think that the idea goes back to you're in an elevator with a VP or someone you want to meet, and you only have 30 seconds to state your case. And what I really teach people is that if you happen to be in an elevator with someone that you do want to get in front of, the worst thing you can do is trot out some prepared speech, right? I mean, that's never not awkward. What you're looking to do is to start a conversation. And so for me, the most common kind of elevator pitch is what I call the conversational elevator pitch. It's when someone says to you, how's it going? Or what do you do? Or just one of these kind of little throwaway lines that people stumble and mumble and aren't sure how to produce it. But what I teach and what my book teaches is how to answer these questions in a way that gets you into a conversation with the right kind of people. And so the only time you really need a 30-second elevator pitch is if you're at a networking event and you get a chance to go around the room and you just have 30 to 40 seconds to introduce yourself. And so I help people with that. But I find the more common thing people are facing is they're standing in line at the grocery store, or they're meeting someone on the street, or you're at a networking event doing open networking. And when you're doing that, what you're really looking for is something quick to say so the other person responds, because at that point you're in a conversation. If you launch into some sort of prepared speech, then you're not getting to know people. Like that's how I look at it.
Yeah, and I could hear those. I was at a meeting recently, and the people that have practiced and they've got their tagline, and it just doesn't feel authentic to me.
Right.
Isn't that the key, is to make it sound conversational? Like
it is.
In a way, you got to make it sound like it came off the top of your head, even though it didn't.
Right. You do need to make it sound like it's not too rehearsed. And the thing that you're looking to do is be in the words of the person that you're talking to. Right. I hear people, I'm trying to think of what the one was the other day, but people like, I hope people, fulfill their dream of home ownership. And I say to people, like, nobody wakes up in the morning and turns to their spouse and it's like, honey, today's the day. We're going to fulfill our dream of home ownership today. Like, today's the day. Nobody says that. What do they say? We need a house in Brookline. That's what they're saying. Right. And so,
that is so good.
You really want your elevator pitch. I call it the pillow talk test. Are you saying something that someone would say to their spouse when they wake up in the morning? Like, today is the day I'm going to, and what it is that you want to do, because that's where you're going to become top of mind to people. Right. When you say something like that, when your words are words that other people will hear, that's how they know that you're a good referral. That's how they know it's a good referral.
Absolutely. You just had me this picture created in my head, and a couple laying in bed, pillow talk. Hey, they just woke up. Hey, I just had the best dream. Really? Did it involve me? Well, kinda. You were standing in the front door too.
Exactly.
Oh, that wasn't the kind of dream I was hoping you were. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought of that. Even the phrase like the dream, that sounds written. I told you I was running late today because I gave this presentation on storytelling.
Yep.
And I always close that out by talking about delivery.
Yep.
I used to have people write out their stories first. And then I thought, that's a mistake, because they go into writer's mode.
Right.
Now I have them recorded on video and then transcribe it.
Oh, interesting.
That's more like what they sound like. And I'm sure writing the whether it's 30 second, 15 or a minute pitch, same thing. Don't write it first. Just say it into a camera how you would say it to your best friend across the table.
Right. And that's interesting you say that, because that's how I work. I have an hour program where I help people. I write a 30-second elevator pitch for people. And that's really, I always say it out loud. Like, when I'm writing it, it always has to be out loud. And what I recommend they do is read it out loud 10 times in a row before they start using it, because it has to live in the world, as you say, right? I mean, someone's not reading it, right? You have to say it out loud. And so I absolutely agree that you're looking for something that sounds good, right? It's not written. I mean, I think it's better to write as you talk anyway. I think that good writers tend to do that. It tends to be more conversational. And I definitely push for that with the elevator pitch. Like, you want it to be something you'd say to your friend. I absolutely agree. Like, how would you describe this to your friend? It's a good way to start.
Exactly. And yeah, it's a constant challenge, and it should always be evolving. I see the same thing with stories and speeches. It should never be the same version every time.
Right.
It should be slightly. Now, in an elevator pitch, it probably should be, at least in the beginning, until you internalize it. But one idea I coach people, and by the way, welcome to, and I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Batwa Wula from Uganda is joining us from Africa. So glad we're in Africa today, Andy.
Nice.
Is say that, write it down. After you've written it down, start to internalize it. But whenever you get stuck on a certain part over and over, that to me is your subconscious telling you, I don't speak this way.
Right.
Throw that part of the script out and say, what am I trying to say here? And then whatever comes out is how you should be speaking those words.
I agree with that. I agree with that completely. And I say and when I coach people, there's always a follow-up call, because whatever we work out, where we're working it out, once you say it in front of people, you stumble at different places, or people have weird reactions to it. Or, I mean, there's always something like it, when it gets out in the world, there's tweaking that you do to make it start the kinds of conversations that you want, right? That's to me, the elevator pitch, what happens with the elevator pitch is you say a bunch of words and someone else says a bunch of words back to you. And if you're not happy with the words they're saying back to you, you just need to change the words that you're saying to them, right? Like you're just looking to say the words that cause people to have the right sort of reaction to you, for whatever whatever you're promoting, or whatever you're trying to do, or whatever you're looking for. And so,
exactly. Yeah. And see if you agree with this. I tell people frequently when it comes to storytelling, the story is not going to make the sale.
No,
The elevator pitch is not meant to make the sale. It is
never.
meant to crack the door open enough so that people say, oh, yeah, let's talk.
Yes. The only thing the elevator pitch gets you is a second conversation. That's all it ever. The best elevator pitch only gets you a second conversation. That's absolutely
and to me, I tell people, have the elevator pitch,
Yep.
share your pitches, and then share your stories.
Right.
Then say, when can we meet again? Or when can we get together?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the whole kind of the order of which it should happen. Now, I always encourage people when they're in a networking event to ask the question, what do you do first?
Yep.
Right? Because then we can tailor our pitch to whatever they just said.
Well, so it's interesting you say that. I actually, because this is always what people say, and I think that at that point you're actually sliding from the elevator pitch into the sales process.
Okay.
And what I actually do, and this is so counterintuitive for people, so it's because of the way we're taught. We can get into that if you want, but the way we're taught in school, we generalize. And so people try to generalize and generalize and generalize. And, Andy, I do these 3 things, and how can I have one thing that covers them all? And you can't, and you don't want to, because the way this works is if you say, look, I work with men in their 40s. People will say to you, and people are like, well, but then it rules out everybody else. I work with women, I work with men in their 50s, but that's not the way it works. When you use specifics, then people put themselves onto that, and they'll say, well, my dad's in his 60s, but he could probably use what you're doing. Would you help him? And look at what's happened now. The person has totally pre-qualified themselves, right? That's exactly what you're doing. And so the way I go at this is when you're super specific, when you're oddly and uncomfortably specific about what you do, that actually starts these kinds of conversations where you can find out exactly what they're thinking about. I work with 10-person companies. Well, we have 12 people. Like, could you do that? And people's thought is, well, if I say 10-person companies, then I rule out everything else. But it actually, in practice, it works the opposite way. When you say a 10-person company, people will tell you how many people are in their company, and then you have something to go on. Then you actually are in the kind of conversation you're talking about, because everyone can't wait for the other person to go first to figure out what you want to say, right? So to me, what you do is you start with a specific about what you do, and then they'll take that and they'll run with that, and wherever they run with it, you'll know is interesting for them. So that's been my approach.
I love what you just said. It's an excellent point. Is specificity really drives down deep, and it doesn't shut people out. It actually opens them up. And you're right. It's counterintuitive.
It's opposite the way we're taught, but but it does work, and I see it time after time. People come back to me all the time. They say, I tried that for 2 weeks, and I met so many people. I had it with someone in H7. They do work for veterinarian. I mean, they do a lot of work for a lot of different companies, but veterinarians happen to be a good prospect for them. And they for 2 weeks, they're like, I do this for veterinarians. And I saw him 2 weeks later. He's like, I've gotten introduced to so many veterinarians. I'm like, yes, like that's how it works, right? It's not that he will only work with veterinarians, but if he has a steady stream of veterinarians coming in, that's a pretty good lead for him.
Nothing wrong with that. And you're right. You're not always going to get the other person to talk first, but I just, excuse me, out of just general respect, I like to get people talking. And what I find is, especially in the semi-post-COVID world, lots of people are willing to talk about themselves because they've been bottled up. But look, nothing's 100% of the time.
Well, and I agree with you completely. You're trying to get the other person to talk. And again, it just, what I'm saying is you have a good technique. I have a different technique. And that's what I say to people all the time. They're, if you're happy with your elevator pitch, if you're happy with the kinds of conversations you're starting, if you're happy with the kind of leads that are coming in, then you don't need me. But if you're saying stuff, or it's a struggle, or you're not sure, it doesn't feel quite right, then I can help come up with different words that'll help you connect with people better. That's the work.
I love that you said that too, because look, there's no one way to do anything.
No, of course not.
I would encourage anybody to talk with you though, because tweaking can make a huge difference. Do split tests. Try one way over here. Go to a different meeting. Like we're in the H7 group. Go to one H7 meeting. Try that over here. Make a tweak. Try it over here. See what.
So actually, thank you. So I do recommend this, but I recommend doing it for a month. So I recommend sticking with something for a month, because that's how you actually figure out how it's working.
Okay.
And then you make a tweak. And there are two reasons for that. The first is that it's hard to know after one, like your elevator pitch is for interacting with hundreds of people. And so it's hard to know after using it once what you've really got. Like you really need to kind of sit with it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is people are always asking me, when should I change my elevator pitch? And I've been using the same elevator pitch now for 15 years, right? I'm the elevator pitch coach, and it works, and I understand how it works. And I mean, I tweak pieces of it, but it's pretty much the same. Once you find the thing that gets you into the conversations, you're not going to want to change it. And so the thing is, if you keep changing what you say, H7 is a good example. Like there's new people in each group, but you'd be surprised the number of people who come to different groups. And if you're a different thing each time, they can never catch up with you. Right. If I'm an elevator pitch coach this time and a delegating coach next time and a presentations coach the next time, then they don't have any idea who I am. So you need that consistency in order to build that relationship over time with people who see you in different kinds of areas. So I completely agree with you. You want to tweak things, but I tweak them slowly. Like I kind of get used to it over probably a month, and then tweak it. And again, that helps people catch up with who you are and helps you understand exactly how it's working.
That makes total sense. It does. And you're right. There's so many people that I really don't know what they do because they were this last week and this.
Right.
Like,
right. And that's the thing, you want to find out how it works. And then once it works, I did this for myself years ago, but I got what I thought was a great idea. I was like, oh, I'll do this. And so I used it and it completely tanked. I mean, I knew exactly how my elevator pitch worked. I know exactly how many people usually approach me. I know exactly how many leads I get. And so I tried this new thing and it completely bombed. And I was like, oh, and in retrospect, I should have known it wouldn't work. I mean, it's embarrassing, but I'm always trying new things, right? I mean, as you say, I mean, there's always new techniques and new ideas and new things. And so, but again, having an elevator pitch that I knew how it worked, I knew the new one was working much worse. So I went back to the one that I'd been using. And that's really the approach that I suggest. You use one, figure out how it works, tweak it, absolutely. And if it works better, then keep it. And if it doesn't, then go back and try something else, right? It is a living, breathing thing. Like it's never a one and done. It's like, okay, now you're set with your elevator pitch, off you go, right? You're always doing conversations. But
it reminds me of something I once read. George Lucas, the director, said, you never really do finish a movie.
Right.
There just comes a day when the studio wants what you have.
Yeah.
We don't have that restriction that movie directors have. Although for all our Star Wars geeks watching, yes, I know George Lucas went back and tweaked his movies because he could. All right, we get that. Most movie makers got to turn it in and be done and move on.
Movies can't do that.
We don't have that restriction, and that's the beauty of testing. Now, if you're going to test, keep track. Go say, keep track. I went to this meeting. There were 15 people there. I met 5 and 3 asked for my
right.
Contact information. Go to the next one, do the same thing. Because how do you know if it's working or which one's better if you don't keep track?
I absolutely agree. Yeah, it's worth it. And it is tracking those. It is tracking those things, like how many people started a conversation with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Third question for you. And we've kind of touched on this, but let's go deeper. What is the biggest mistake you see with elevator pitches?
Oh, yeah. You said it earlier. I mean, the biggest mistake is that people think that they're going to make the sale from the elevator pitch. I meet so many people who are like, well, I gave my elevator pitch and no one came running up to hand me cash. I'm like, okay, so and there's this confusion. I mean, it sounds weird to say this, but I find that when I'm teaching people and coaching people, there's this real confusion with networking between networking and sales. Mm-hmm. And people are like, how could that be a confusion? But if you're collecting business cards, or if you're studying attendance lists, or if you're doing any of the, or if you have a follow-up system, you're prospecting, right? That's sales. If you're networking, you're making connections with people. You're trying to get to know people. You're setting up coffee meetings. You're creating conversations where you can kind of build up the relationship with people. And so the biggest mistake I see people making is think first of all thinking that it's sales, and second of all thinking that it's a one and done sort of thing. That some of the people that I partner with the best, we had 10, 12 coffee meetings, over a couple of years before we got to know each other well enough that we were, ready to team teach, right? I mean, it takes time to get to know people. It's not, there's nothing you're going to say in 30 seconds that's going to have someone understand exactly everything you're about. And there's nothing you can say in a 45-minute coffee meeting that's going to do it, right? Over time, you get to know people and understand them. And so that's really, it's such a relief to people when I teach this, that the goal isn't to get people interested or sign people up for something, or the goal is just to start conversations and get to know people and find a couple of people you like talking to have a coffee meeting with. Like that's really how I look at it.
Love that. And the other tip I've taken from you today is don't abandon something after you've tried it once, twice, 3 times. You got to give it several times. You said something about hundreds. Yeah, give it in front of at least 200 people.
Yeah.
And
Well,
maybe
the interesting thing about that is I've worked with plenty of people who gave an elevator pitch that worked, right? That they signed up a customer or 2 customers, like people came pouring in and they never did it again. And I was like,
yeah.
what? And they're like, well, that's not how I want to present myself. I'm thinking, well, why not? I mean, that's what worked, right? I mean, that was the thing that worked. Like, if it works, keep doing it. Please, everyone, anyone who's listening to this, if it works, if you say something and you get a customer out of it, keep with that for a while, right? See how that goes.
You might want to stick with that.
I want to stick with that, right? That yes, and it's amazing to me how I don't know how to describe. That's, again, to me, it's the networking and sales thing. Like, people find something. Occasionally, they stumble upon the truth, right? And they pick themselves up and hurry on as though nothing had happened, right? So I really do encourage people to pay attention to the conversations that start, and especially any leads you get or anything like that. I mean, I found a huge technique when I gave an elevator pitch once and got 5 leads right there. There's a room of 30 people, and I got 5 leads out of it. And I've been tweaking it ever since, but that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. You're looking for the thing that causes people to kind of jump over the table and want to talk to you.
Absolutely. And now, before we go, this is like a sub question to the second one. What's the shortest effective elevator pitch you've seen?
It's funny. I say to people, I don't work with doctors because they have their specialty built in. If you need an orthopedic surgeon, you go to the orthopedic surgeon. If you need an internal medicine person, you go to the internal medicine person. And so any time that you kind of have that specialty baked in, they studied for years to have that specialty, and so that's their specialty. But nobody's confused about which doctor they need to go to. And so that, to me, and so what I teach people is I call it the 7 to 10 word pitch. Like, you're looking for, I help a group of people take an action. Right. I help people with broken arms heal their arms. Right. That's something a doctor would say. But something that quick, really, it sticks with people and they get it. And that's what I look for. I just look for something that's quick and clear. Right. I mean, that, people try to be humorous or pithy or all these other things. And it's really not. I mean, unless you're a stand-up comedian, then I guess you might want to be funny in what you're saying, because that's what you're looking to bring people in for. But people too, they tell me, my elevator pitch is kind of boring. I'm like, right, it's boring to you because you've been doing it for decades, but it's not boring to the people that you're meeting. Like, the people that you're meeting have the need for that. And so I think it's important to have that kind of approach to it.
Yeah, great. That's very good insight into that. Also, when I work with people on stories and they start to get bored, I say, you can tweak it.
Right. Yeah.
The way you tweak stories is you include more dialogue.
I love that.
Changes it because it puts us more in the scene, and you can work dialogue into a 30-second.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I put that in all the time. Like, I love, I talk to people and interview them. I get them to tell stories about the work they've been doing, and that's what goes into the elevator pitch from my point of view. And you're right. I love putting quotes in there because customer quotes are great. I wrote one the other day for someone that his best customer was like, "This is exactly the thing I've been looking for." And I put that. I mean, that's what I put it in. Like, this is exactly the thing I've been looking for, because I love that kind of stuff. So,
well, what you just said is so important, Andy, both in pitches and stories. I was talking with a client yesterday, and we don't see the gold in our own experiences. I said, what is a common phrase you hear from customers who are happy with your work? You changed my life. He said, I said, now, can you be a little more specific?
Right.
Yeah, you took all my IT problems away.
Right.
How many times have you heard that, Joe? Oh, at least 3 or 4 in the last month. Is that in your marketing, in your pitch, in your story?
It's a good place to start your elevator pitch. Yeah. Absolutely.
No, I said, why not? Because you're speaking to prospective customers through your customers who are happy. That's exactly what they want.
That's exactly how they describe it.
I had fun with him, but I said, we're all guilty of it. I've done the same thing with my stories and pitches. And somebody said, well, why isn't that in there? I don't know. It's right in front of my face.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it. It's always important. Bounce your pitches, your stories off of your ideas off of other people, because they will they'll shine a light, because we all have blinders on.
Right. Yes. No, and that's how I have a job, right? You can't see the label when you're inside the jar. So you
Exactly.
need someone to kind of cut you. And I've been working with a lot of marketing folks recently who they show me the work they've done for their clients, and it's clear and concise. They're doing great work with their clients, and then their piece of it is all over the map where you can't. You need and the elevator pitch, becoming the elevator pitch coach. My client gave me that. Like I was working with a lawyer. And I love to ask. It's used. I get my clients to ask their clients the question. Do you mind me asking the top 3 reasons you decided to do business with me? It's elevator pitch gold. And I asked this lawyer that question, and he said, "Well, you're the elevator pitch coach and needed help with my elevator pitch." And the funny thing was that up until that point, I had never called myself the elevator pitch coach. I don't know where he got that, but it had never come out of my mouth. But I've been using it ever since. Like it's good to recognize gold when you stumble across it.
Yes, and our clients give us all the marketing material we ever
They
need
do.
if we listen and then record it.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Write it down.
So,
Absolutely.
all right,
Yeah.
Andy, I could talk with you a long time about this. We're both in the same world. I want to respect your time, but before we give your contact information, you are the recipient of a very prestigious award. Very few people have gotten this Hall of Fame and world champion speakers and successful other successful business people, but you're going to receive via mail the Golden Shovel Award. Because you are a master at digging into people's lives, their world, so that they can create the best possible elevator pitch. So,
well, thank you, Mike. That's very insightful.
It's a prestigious award.
I appreciate that.
We'll send it to you. The first time I did this, I thought of it in the middle of a call one day with my friend Ed Tate. Ed's a world champion speaker, highly successful professional, and I thought of it. So I sent it to him. And he showed me a picture. It's right up there on the wall next to his certified speaking professional and world championship. And I said,
awesome.
That's awesome.
I'm thinking I will do the same.
All kidding aside, you really do a fabulous job. You have a tremendous service and value you provide to help people see the gold that they can't. So, ergo, you get the Golden Shovel Award. Now, if anybody wants to take a deeper dive with you, let's show them how to do that. Suspense. There's your email address.
That's me. Yep.
awining@improvandy.com. We didn't even get into improv today, but I know you've done that, and it's an important part of what I do. Any final thoughts, closing ideas from you on 30-second or any length of elevator pitch?
I just, again, people feel relief when they realize the only goal is to start a conversation. That the job is to get in there and to get other people talking. Right. And that's what I help people with.
Absolutely. Well, I highly recommend that you visit Andy, talk with him, and just see how he can help you be more effective with your pitches. Andy, good to talk with you. I'm sure we will hook up again soon. And until next time, for 3 Questions of Better Business, this is Michael Davis, Speaking CPR, reminding you that you have a story to tell. Get out there and tell it. Have a great weekend, everybody.